We have officially started the second half of the season. We're going to break down some Notre Dame football here at the Voice for College Football. We got Nick Shepkowski on the line from Notre Dame on SI. Nick, always good to see you. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, Mark. Thanks for the invitation.
All right, so a dominant win, 49-7 against Stanford. So maybe that squelched some of those trolls that love to hit you up and others about the game from a couple of years ago when that Stanford 3-9 infamous game. Uh, Along with the other upset loss. Although, of course, Notre Dame suffered another one of those this year, but still, you put it all together and it's 5-1, and this team still has all of its goals right in front of it, following a 49-7 win against the Stanford team that rose up a couple times and played some decent football this year at times, but again, one of the lesser teams in the country. So, what are your impressions of the performance against Stanford?
Yeah, it was 49-7, and that's sometimes you get these games where it's like points scored late and it's a runaway late type of thing. It was all the parts of a 49-7 game. Really, the only things if you look at Notre Dame that you'd take away from this and you're kind of frustrated by were there was a penalty on the opening drive, opening possession. Looked like it was going to be a drive that Notre Dame was just marching down. A penalty kicks that back 10 yards. Ends up slowing and stunning that drive, result in 0 points instead of 7 to start the game. And then defensively, a little bit of trouble keeping contained on the opposing quarterback the first possession. Stanford takes a 7-point lead, and you're thinking, seen this before. This story's not good. And it was pure and utter domination from there on out. Stanford had one play greater than 20 yards all day. Kind of speaks to Notre Dame's defense, the level that it played at throughout the afternoon. I know Stanford has had its offensive line problems, keeping a quarterback up straight, but Notre Dame, consistent pressure all day long. It's kind of the how Al Golden makes his defense work, and he was on full display on Saturday. I mean, it's one that you look at, Riley Leonard. I mean, you hear it, okay, he comes from the ACC. This is going to be a step up in quarterback, this and that. But if you watch Riley Leonard at all, he's not ever going to be a guy that's going to throw for 400 yards in a game or put up huge numbers passing wise with any consistency. But he did enough in this game. This is his best game, at least as a passer at Notre Dame, easily. Right at 200 yards, averaging over 10 yards per attempt, 3 touchdown passes. And when he's healthy, defending what Notre Dame's able to do against the run is a very difficult thing to do. And that was on full display on Saturday.
So, Nick, when you put it all together, I think the highs and the lows of the season are pretty obvious to point out. Going to Texas A&M, taking a 13-all game and dominating the back half of the fourth quarter to take that game on the road, and Texas A&M is proving week to week to be a pretty good football team. And then, of course, the game against Louisville, you eventually lost there against, again, a good team. And then the utter domination of the likes of Purdue and Stanford, et cetera. The obvious low is the 29-point upset in terms of being that kind of a favorite against Northern Illinois. So now comes the backstretch of the season. Where would you, as a midterm grading system, rate this team in terms of who's getting the A's and the high B's versus what units may be faltering at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to look at it in the way that the defense, the linebackers to me have been very impressive. The back half of that defense has been very impressive all year round, all year long so far. And that takes a hit. Today, it's announced that Benjamin Morrison, the All-American cornerback junior, projected by many to be a first-round pick in this coming draft, has to undergo hip surgery. Suffered an injury against Stanford, was kind of not noticed, was able to limp off the field, and that wasn't really noticed a whole lot in the game, and ends up being season ending, probably career ending with Notre Dame, because I would guess he's off to the draft. He's one of those talents that he's 3 and done, gets done with his junior year. That is an NFL player. He has shown it since his freshman year at Notre Dame. And now the good news, I don't want to say it's good news ever when you lose that kind of skill, that kind of player, because Notre Dame's dealt with some injuries. Really rotating your best pass rushers. Notre Dame has lost Jordan Botelho, Boubacar Traore have both gone down with injuries, are out for the year. So they've taken their hits. But I guess if there is a silver lining in this for Notre Dame, the schedule coming up, Georgia Tech, not an extremely pass-heavy team. Both service academies on the schedule here in the next month or so. You know about them. Pass has been brought into their offenses a little bit more here in the last couple of years, but by no means are they going to try to throw for 300 yards on you either. So it's favorable for at least this team of when this happens. I think this is not popular in Notre Dame circles because it all goes back to that loss you talked about. Northern Illinois. Yeah, but Northern Illinois, something good happens. Yeah, but that Northern Illinois game could have been the season-defining game. And it could have been a Notre Dame team that, well, we're down on our luck. Woe is us, this kind of thing, this, that, and shows up a week later in Purdue and lays an egg. Instead, you saw complete domination in that game from the opening kickoff. Louisville, if you just pull up the box score and look at that and say, okay, well, Notre Dame didn't have a big advantage in yards or this or that. Didn't seem like they dominated. They held a 2-score advantage in that game for almost 40 minutes of it. So it's when you don't have this great passing attack that you're going to be able to score in 45 seconds with regularity like some teams are blessed with having, the games are going to look a little bit different. And I think that when I'm handing out, like going through my report card, coaching staff here at the halfway point, even though it might not be popular, you're looking at, yes, there's that one day you have to answer for in early September against Northern Illinois. But outside of that, what they've been able to do, what they've been able to work through with the number of injuries this team has had, passing with flying colors. I mean, you're looking B+, A- mode, even with the Northern Illinois game into consideration.
And as you know better than I do, my impression of that Louisville effort was, even though it was only a touchdown game at the end, that there were 2 turnovers in that game. Obviously, the opening kickoff and another turnover deep in Notre Dame territory that basically gifted 2 touchdowns. And the 24 that Louisville put up was obviously the final touchdown of the game that barely threatened Notre Dame. So it was a pretty convincing win there.
Yeah, that was a very strong showing. I mean, that was one where it was another one of those of come off of a Miami University game where won 28-3, but it never felt that great. It never looked that great. And instead, you come back against Louisville, blunder the opening kickoff, kind of like you mentioned. Louisville takes the early lead, and then you blink, and it's 21-7 Notre Dame. And they're playing to stay in control of the game, not necessarily to try and blow out Louisville, because I don't think that offense is capable of blowing up a whole lot of teams. But yeah, a lot of things have gone right. It's had some bad luck with injuries, has had Notre Dame this year. But a lot of things have gone right, and you're looking at a back half of the season where, okay, the service academies are better than they were thought to be going into this year. Both of them are unbeaten. They're great stories in themselves. USC already has 3 losses on the year. Who knows what that outfit's going to look like by the time that comes around the weekend of Thanksgiving. It's a favorable schedule. It's setting up very nicely here for Notre Dame, injuries included. And, I mean, you're looking at a team. I love these, like, people that put out the projections of, well, Notre Dame, are they going to be a playoff team? They go 11-1. Your question is not, is Notre Dame a playoff team? Your question is Notre Dame hosting a playoff game? Because if this is an 11-1 team, it is 100% certainly getting in.
We've got Nick Shepkowski here from Notre Dame on SI to break down the Irish, and Notre Dame's got a date against a 5-2 Georgia Tech team coming up, and we will get to that matchup here in a second. Please subscribe here at the Voice of College Football and like the video. Check out Nick's work at Notre Dame SI. Wanted to get to the running game. The backs are highly impressive between Love and Price. The offensive line, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe not as dominant as it's been in the past. At the same time,
young is probably your best way to describe it.
Yep.
A lot of inexperience, and there's been some growing pains there, and I get it. It's Stanford. You have to put that caveat on there, but played very well against Stanford. It's an offensive line that highly consists of freshmen and sophomores, and you're getting that performance out of it. It's one of those that sets up, like, if they're able to stay the course, a year or two from now, you could be looking at one of the better units here in big time college football.